All right, welcome back, everybody. I know you're all still just settling in from lunch, but we're going to begin the rest of the afternoon schedule. We're halfway there. A lot more amazing talks and interviews to go, and I want to jump right in. So for the next interview, I want to bring on Pedro from WalletConnect Foundation. He's a director there, previously the co-founder of WalletConnect. And we're going to talk about some amazing news that they just shared with everybody in the world. And we'll go directly into that now. So please welcome Pedro on stage. So the awesome part about all of this is that we get to effectively break some news, and you just talked about creation of the WalletConnect Foundation. And I want to give you the first opportunity to tell people what was just announced, and we'll go right in. So please tell everybody the news.
Yeah, so it's quite good to see like the title already updated because, you know, like if Global already had a little alpha there about the title change, but it's been something that we've been working for so long. Like I hope it's no surprise that like the whole goal of WalletConnect has always been to decentralize. It just took 6 years to do it. Like, but it's so good that it's finally out there in the public. And now we have like this mission to continue the decentralization of what is a very foundational piece of infrastructure.
So congratulations on the Connect token. Why now?
So WalletConnect at the beginning had this very, I guess, open source approach that, you know, at the beginning of this history of Ethereum, public goods funding was actually pretty good. But even if you do things like very decentralized from the beginning, you end up slowing down a lot. And it all started in 2018 with the Ethereum Foundation grants, and it had like one GitHub repository with all the code, and I was managing those repositories with multiple contributors, and we partnered with Gitcoin to distribute bounties. But things weren't really fast. And then around 2021, we had to accelerate things, and we became like venture funded. But that also came at the expense of centralization. So we end up having to find this balance by having to accelerate and decentralize at the same time. And last year, we performed a major upgrade to the WalletConnect network that made all of this happen. So 12 months after, I think we have done a good job of actually putting together the structure for what it is the future of the decentralized network, because we have unlocked the technical limitations of the protocol itself.
What for kind of those in the audience, what was that change, and what sort of made it immediately possible?
Yeah, so the way in WalletConnect was designed at the inception, it didn't really make like both apps and wallets very comfortable with running the infrastructure. It put like very heavy requirements in actually running nodes, and you know, it was a very optimistic approach that everyone is gonna run a node, and we're gonna have like 3,000 nodes of WalletConnect network. And then we had to be a little bit more pragmatic and understand that, like, you know, these people have businesses and they have to like operate and serve their customers. They can't be operating thousands of nodes for different things. So now we have a more like a triangle approach, I like to call it, where you have apps, wallets, and node operators as separate entities. And that re-architecture came with the upgrade last year. And while we were upgrading, we just realized, like, why be EVM specific? And we also introduced multi-chain support. So now we're actually supported by Solana ecosystem, Cosmos, Polkadot, Tezos, Algorand. Like, the list is huge. I could go on and on.
That's amazing. So now you're announcing a network. You have a foundation. What happens to the company? And how does your role change?
Yeah, so to give a little context, like, it's not easy to kind of go to conferences and tell people, guys, we should do things differently, we should do things better. Because at the end of the day, if you're an app developer, you're just building your app, and if you're a wallet developer, you're just focused on building a wallet. So in 2019, to bootstrap the adoption of WalletConnect, I created this SDK called Web3 Modal, which got really, really popular back then. And that actually was the focus of the company. So the software company focused a lot on building the Web3 modal experience to build a better developer experience. And because we wanted to separate those two missions, like, you're still building a better user experience, but you're taking a very different approach, where one is like a community of developers building a decentralized network, and the other one is building like a superior developer experience through an SDK. So the company, through the announcement of the WalletConnect Foundation, rebranded itself from WalletConnect to Reon. So now you can find app kits and wallet kits, the SDKs that we now offer at the Reon. And that came with the transition from me, from the Reon to the WalletConnect Foundation.
And what does it mean for you now? Because the Reon team is going to maintain now the SDKs, but what does your priority look like?
So it's interesting because I mentioned that in 2019, Web3 Model was like one of the top SDKs, but you can't really be the top SDK if you're the only SDK. Like, and back then there was like only one SDK. So like that's why it was the number one. It was either you didn't use an SDK or you used Web3 Model. Since 2018, a lot of SDKs came into the market. So you have Rainbow Kit, Connect Kit, you have Dynamic, Privy, Third Web, Block Native. All of these SDKs came into the market, and they all support the WalletConnect network. So now Reon is working in parallel with these companies to build a superior wallet experience. And they're also one of the biggest node operators of the network as well. So they're both the node operators for the network, together with other partners like Ledger, Consensus, Kiln, Figment, Sensei nodes, Lugano nodes. And also they're working on the SDK experience together with the other SDKs. So WalletConnect Foundation takes a little bit of a step back from Reon and being like the main SDK and being just another SDK that collaborates with us building this future.
So you collaborate with you, the foundation, or the rest of the ecosystem? Like as in other providers?
I feel like the role of the foundation is to be the glue between all of them, because it's very hard to set standards and at the same time compete. Those conversations can be a little hard to have. I actually think that like the wallet space is actually one of the most friendly ones. Like you do see a little bit more tension in other parts of the ecosystem. Like wallets are actually quite friendly. But yeah, basically WalletConnect Foundation can be seen almost like this united nation of wallets where, you know, everyone can agree that like we want to do this together, but nobody wants to take the first step. So we will try to like steward the people in the right direction.
I want to go a little bit off topic just out of curiosity, but what are some common things that you feel like need standardization in the world of wallets?
Yeah, like for example, one of the initiatives that we were very heavily involved was like the sign-in with Ethereum, because a lot of these connections, like people are connecting wallets and they're actually not verifying if people use the wallets, and sign-in with Ethereum was like a big push there. But then that also added like a little bit of friction, because now you're connecting a wallet and you're signing a message right away. It's like we already have enough clicks in Web3, adding another one doesn't help. So we brought like some standardization around chain agnostic standards about how you can actually reduce the number of clicks when you authorize. And now with this new movement where wallets are moving to like smart accounts, we actually can improve that experience where not only you verify your wallet, but you can actually grant permissions to dApps. So like building up like the connection experience to be smarter and smarter, and building like this new concept of smart sessions where you empower apps to sign on the behalf of wallets.
Which is, so I get to say that this app can make transactions from my wallet on my behalf. And that's not the same as account abstraction.
It is. So, okay. But the problem with account abstraction is that it's solved like more at the infrastructure level. It created like some standards around how different players like solvers and bundlers and paymasters all work together. But it kind of forgot like that at the app and wallet layer, there was like still missing standardization, and they just kind of expected eventually people will figure it out. But fortunately, WalletConnect was there to kind of realize like these things don't happen overnight. We need to start the conversations early. We have like WalletConnect organizes like hacks very frequently. We're already on our second edition, and these hacks are actually bringing together these teams into the same room. It's a little different than what ETH Global does, where you onboard new developers. We're actually taking existing developers from these big teams and just putting them in the room and say, work together.
Yeah, there's a lot of that when you're setting standards. So do you, I know it's super early, but do you kind of have an idea for how other wallets have reacted to this in terms of do they kind of see that this is going to actually make it easier for them to now collaborate and set and agree on standards, or do you kind of feel like it's too early to know, but how do you feel like things are going to go here?
It's interesting, right? Because what end up happening over time is that wallets are striving for like grabbing more market share, and some of them actually have taken the approach of building both the SDK and the wallet. And that actually created a little bit of a conflict of interest because now they were actually competing with our app kit, but we also need to work together. So I actually think this partition actually helps the conversations because it creates a very clear separation about who is who. Now we have like Reon building the app kit, which is also something that you can collaborate on standards, but who's driving these conversations as a neutral party is the WalletConnect Foundation. So we can talk to wallets in a very different tone that, you know, like if you're thinking, wait, you're trying to create a standard, but you also have a competing SDK and you're telling me to how to build my wallet, you know, like foundations are really great for that. And I really hope that with the network, it even creates incentives to actually, you know, beyond.
Agree on a shared approach. You've been in this space a long time, which means you've seen all the ups and downs. You've seen how people have evolved, how we've come up with new models and new ways to think about it. The thing I'm kind of super curious about is when you were deciding to make this transition, which is setting up a foundation, launching the network, what were kind of some of the learnings that you sort of saw from everybody else, whether it's mistakes or things that you really enjoyed, and you're like, I definitely need to do this thing, or definitely do not need to do this thing when I do it for WalletConnect? Are there some obvious things that you're like, hey, we should not do that, or we definitely have to do X, Y, Z? What kind of came in as you were setting up the foundation?
I think the number one lesson in all of these years is that this is told in pretty much every startup book, in every startup blog, every startup podcast, which is says, focus in one thing and be the best one at it. And you really think you're doing that until you actually realize over time how much you spread yourself thin. And I think through the journey of WalletConnect, there was definitely a very focused approach in the early years because just lack of funding and resources. And as those funding and resources started to come in, you start getting a little bit more and more ambitious, and you start kind of blurring the line what the wallet is, and you start expanding. And I think then eventually, you know, the market goes down and like, you know, you've kind of like spent more money, and then you start realizing, actually, I need to go back to my origin. And with this WalletConnect Foundation, the WalletConnect Network, and even the Reon team has taken a much more focused approach with their app kit. I think we've learned that like what we're really here to do is to build a superior user experience for wallets connecting to apps, which it says on the name, but sometimes it's hard to forget when you're trying to solve every problem in Web3.
Yeah, luckily you have a good reminder to do the job of wallet connections. How do you think about decentralizing the network? What does it mean to be on a network, and what are some of your goals for decentralization here?
Yeah, so you initially think that the problem is very simple because you have applications who want to talk to wallets, but these wallets back in 2017, they had to essentially create like these, I call it like BD armies going after apps, like going app after app and say, integrate me, and having the like this unified layer where all wallets could share the connection reduced a lot of that like necessity for like, you know, doing direct integrations. But then it created a centralizing point, which was WalletConnect, the company, and now we had to kind of break down the company into smaller pieces. So then first node operators are building what is the foundation of the network. We call it the service nodes, which you can read more in the white paper. But then eventually we actually have to incentivize other parts of the system. Like we have the gateway, which is still centralized, and we're looking to decentralize that. And more important than that, we actually want to make sure that like wallets have more sustainable business models. Like a lot of these wallets, as the funds run out, they start looking for more revenue opportunities. And the number one value proposition that they have here is that they bring users to the network, and they're not earning money for that. They have to go after swap fees, bridge fees, on-ramp fees, any other revenue opportunity that's actually detached from the wallet connection. And I really think there's been like multiple business models built around this. You know, you could think about credit cards, loyalty points. It's nothing new, and wallets should be rewarded. So I think in a single sentence, what the WalletConnect network should achieve the most, beyond rewarding the node operators of the network, is distributing the rewards into the wallets such that they can build more sustainable business models.
Which is actually really nice way of solving the problem that they don't have to compete for each other and different models, because if they bring everybody in the network, everybody wins, which is really awesome. You kind of talked about the SDK now expanding to be supportive of like Cosmos ecosystem and Polkadot and Solana and obviously the EVM ecosystem. And it's in your best interest to kind of be the glue to all the wallets. But your token is on the OP stack. What's going on with that? What's the preferential treatment here?
That's a very good question. So basically, WalletConnect has always had a very strong Ethereum bias because it spent 5 years of its existence only for EVM, and a lot of the usage has been surrounding EVM. So even in its early history, like, we've been receiving funds through donations through the EVM. We've been connecting wallets through EVM. Like most of the usage came through EVM. Like the developers that built standards for wallets were EIPs. So if we were to do like a token deployed in another ecosystem, we would basically have to move more people over,
I totally agree.
other than having like where people already are. So we're bringing the token home for the early adopters, but that doesn't mean that the token is going to be there forever. Like I really hope that WalletConnect token transcends every network, and then it will be just available wherever you are.
But why OP layer 2 instead of ETH mainnet?
So this is a misunderstanding because obviously we have to be succinct with our communication. The token is on Ethereum mainnet, but it will be distributed on OP mainnet.
Understood.
Right? So OP mainnet is the platform that we chose for the distribution, but the actual token is deployed on Ethereum mainnet. Therefore, all the bridges will be instantly compatible with this token.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, and it simplifies distribution altogether. Is the goal to just let anybody run a node here as a third participant, or do you because you name specific projects, how do you think about who gets to participate?
Yeah, so basically in the early this year, around late Q1, early Q2, we started like talking to node operators, and because we want to make sure that the WalletConnect network continues to serve millions and millions of connections and it doesn't break down, we had a very slow onboarding process. Like these 7, if you count Reon is 8. Node operators have been onboarded like one by one, and this is a permissioned network today. And this is not going to be an easy task if we want to like scale to like many node operators. We can't be onboarding everyone. So having the token introduction here actually allows us to provide like a stake where the node operators can onboard themselves. We already have the hardware requirements specified. They can know how to run a node, but then we don't want to be like onboarding manually everyone. So instead of having a list of which node operators are valid or not, you will just be able to stake and participate. But that's part of the roadmap of the WalletConnect network.
Awesome. And I'm going to ask another question related to something I asked earlier, but how do you kind of think about governance of this network? And did you take any lessons from how we've seen governance evolve as a few other networks have launched?
Yeah, so I think that the governance starts at the distribution already. This is something that we've been working for like over 6 months, thinking about who actually is going to receive these tokens, how much skin in the game they already have. That already sets you for a good start. But we're definitely going to take a very slow approach with governance. There's some foundations that kind of just let the DAO go wild, but then that also allows people to capture the momentum of the DAO. And there's other foundations who never allow the DAO to take any like material decisions. So I think the best way to do it is to actually have them create a little bit of a signal at first, and that way the DAO can then essentially train themselves to become more and more involved over time and have the foundation as the executor of these decisions. And we actually partitioned this decision into 3 parts. We have like the community So we're going to start with that part where they can make community decisions around education and grants, and then eventually we'll have like the technology decision and eventually the treasury decisions. So we partition this in 3 phases.
Like as in after showing some work, or you're saying you're going to recruit different communities to own different pieces at the same time?
Just because we expect in this order to be easier for the community to start learning about the network. So taking community decisions early and then eventually giving them execution power, and then eventually they start learning about the technology, so they vote on some sentiment, and then the foundation can actually make the execution. But the end goal is that, like, hopefully in the future, maybe not too long from here, the DAO actually votes directly into the actual network decisions. But at the beginning, to protect the network from like going down, we want to make sure that the foundation is the last button push, and it just follows the DAO sentiment as a signal.
I mean, that's going to be an awesome goal. Maybe to add to that as a last question, a year from now, we're going to bring you back on stage and ask how did everything turn out? What do you kind of expect to have accomplished in 12 months?
So the token at launch won't be transferable for a multitude of reasons. So we want to work together with like the community to come around a timeline for actually activating the transferability of the token. At the beginning, people will be able to stake and vote in the DAO with the token, and then the transfer will be activated later after that. And I think it's important that we start with transferability because that will give us a platform to actually activate the fees for the apps to consume the network. And once we actually have that final goal of the app fees, then we can actually start talking about how we're actually going to distribute wallet rewards. So if I want to be very ambitious, I want to do all those 3 things next year.
Sorry, in the next year or starting 1 year from now?
Well, let's put it like Christmas 2025. Like,
Okay, that's a perfectly
that's my
awesome
gift.
goal.
That's what I want us.
That's a good Christmas present for everybody. Amazing. Well, Pedro, thank you so much for this amazing chat, and
Thank you
best
so
of luck
much.
with the launch.